Hey everyone, Grandmaster Finegold here again with Kid Chess. And I wanted to show you a video today that has one idea, but I want to show you a couple different positions so you get used to the idea. And this is the idea of hanging pieces, or as a lot of people say, loose pieces drop off. Okay, my definition of loose pieces is when you have a bishop or a knight on the fourth or fifth row. It's the fourth and fifth row for you and your opponent that are not defended. Okay, not defended. So I'm going to show you three positions that have happened in my games where if somebody made a mistake, they would lose a bishop or a knight, and it would be really bad because basically the game just started. Now, I'll show you one that I do with white where my opponent tries to trap me, but I don't fall for it. I mean, if I'm teaching it, probably I shouldn't fall for it. Okay, and that's d4, d5, bishop g5. This move is unusual, so I like to play it because it pins the pawn. I must say, about 35 years ago, in a slow-rated game where both of us had about an hour, one of my opponents did play e6, and I ended up taking his queen. He wasn't too happy about that. Okay, but let's look at some more normal stuff. h6, attacking my bishop. I move my bishop away. c6, this allows the queen to get out. e3, queen b6. Notice the queen is attacking my pawn. And also, my opponent doesn't have his e-pawn pinned anymore, so he can move it. Okay, queen c1 is what I usually play. That defends my pawn. Now, there's a very tricky move that I would say I faced about 5 times in my life. That move is e5. Okay, now remember, loose pieces drop off, and that's pieces that are on the 4th and 5th rank. I call them hanging pieces. Those are pieces that are bishops and knights, and they're not protected. Does one of those pieces exist in this position? Yes, my bishop on h4. So if I'm like, wow, my opponent just gave away a pawn. It's a free pawn. Well, I know better because loose pieces drop off. If I take that pawn, my opponent has a fork. He can fork my bishop and my king, and that would win my bishop for free. Do you see how he can do that? Attack my king and my bishop? The answer is queen b4 check, attacking my king and my bishop. I must get out of check. I have a lot of ways to get out of check, but then when I do, I lose my bishop. So in this position, I never take this pawn. I almost always play knight f3. Now, let's go back. Why couldn't he check and take my bishop now? Because this d pawn is here. He's trying to get rid of it. Okay, he's trying to. Okay, another example of this, the same kind of tactic. There's this really silly gambit, d4, e5. I must admit, sometimes I'm guilty of playing that silly gambit. And white takes the pawn. Black tries to get his pawn back, and white says, no, you can't do that. And black says, no, I want to get my pawn back. And white says, no, you can't do that. Okay, now white's playing fine here, but if white doesn't know this opening, sometimes he blunders on his next move. Black plays the move queen b4 check. Okay, and if all you see is your king is attacked, it's easy to make a blunder here. Loose pieces drop off. This bishop is loose. We're attacking the bishop and we're attacking the king. Okay, we're also attacking the b pawn, but that's not as important. So what white should do here is play bishop to d2. That saves the bishop and it saves the king. It's not check. Okay, a lot of people don't see their bishop is attacked, so they'll play c3, which stops check. They'll play knight bd2, then loose pieces drop off. So just because your piece is attacked and you're in check, it's often possible to save both of them. In the first example, there was nothing you can do. Here, you can play bishop to d2 and save your bishop. Now, before we go to the next one, I want to show you a mistake white can make. It looks like queen d2 saves the day because we stop check and we save our bishop, and we're not worried about a queen trade. That doesn't win a queen, that's just a trade. But actually, queen d2 is also a bad move. After queen takes pawn, attacking the rook, the only way to save the rook is queen c3, because the knight protects the queen. But now bishop b4 wins the queen. Aw. Okay, I've had people do that, and I've won the game as a consequence. So in this position, even though queen d2 saves the bishop, it doesn't work because your rook is trapped. If you play the correct move, saving your bishop, now you can play knight to c3 and your queen defends your rook. And now white has a very good position. Okay, good for white. So remember, just because you have a loose piece, sometimes you can save it. And in this position, white saves his loose piece, even though he's in check and it's attacked, by playing the move bishop to d2. You can still save it. It's okay. Now, a long time ago, I was giving a chess lesson in a chess club, and there was a guy who came in. He was a very good chess player, and he was watching the lesson. He was like, oh, let me see that lesson. Okay. And he was there to buy some chess books at the chess club, and he figured he'd look at my lesson for a few minutes. And my lesson was about checking with the queen, like in the examples we saw, and then you take a loose piece. And he was watching the lesson, but the lesson was too easy for him. This was for one of my beginning students. Anyway, it turned out that evening I played a chess tournament, and I played against him, the guy who was watching. Let's see how that game went. Okay, I was black. I played the Sicilian. And this game was played, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. That sound about right? That's about right. Okay, and in this position, my opponent played h4, which is an unusual move, moving on the side of the board. He wants to keep pushing his pawn, so I stopped him. Okay, and he played bishop b5. Now I made another unusual move, queen e2. Probably your chess coach told you, don't move on the side in the opening, and don't move your queen really early. Okay, so white did two things that are a little strange, and so I punished him by playing knight d4. My knight attacks the queen, and it also attacks c2, which would fork his king and rook. So he took my knight. I took his knight. And he made another bad move, knight to d5. The reason that's bad is because of the move e6, attacking his knight. And he has to retreat his knight, but no matter what he does, he's in trouble. Okay, now, if he plays knight b4, I play a6, and one of these pieces gets trapped. Like if he goes here, his knight's trapped. There's nowhere safe to go. And if he plays somewhere else, I just keep attacking his pieces until they're trapped. Either he loses his knight or loses his bishop. Okay, and so you don't want to play knight b4 and get your pieces all jumbled up there. So he played the more natural move, knight f4. Okay, and now I played a fork. I attacked his knight and his pawn at the same time because neither one's defended. Remember, loose pieces dropped off. Which one of these pieces is hanging and not defended? Only one of them is defended. The other one isn't. The answer, well, this one's defended by the queen. This one's not defended by anything. And since this pawn's not defended, I played queen c7, attacking them both. Okay. Now, what my opponent needs to do is save his knight. The knight's more important than the pawn. Okay, but he decided he was going to save them both. And he did save them both, unfortunately, to the detriment of one of his other pieces. Remember when I said the queen was attacking the bishop and nothing was defending the knight? Well, he reversed it. He made sure something was defending the knight, but nothing was defending the bishop. Unfortunately, that was his losing move. He played d3. Why did he play d3? His bishop defends his knight. That's good. And his queen defends his pawn. He defended both things I was attacking, right? So he thought he did a good job. Unfortunately, this bishop on b5 is no longer defended. It was defended by the queen, but then he played d3. So he went from one piece defended and the other piece wasn't, and he switched it. He just didn't realize it. And now I played the winning move. How can I attack his king and bishop at the same time? That was the lesson I was giving that day. He was watching the lesson. I guess he forgot. The lesson wasn't really for him. So, do you see the winning move for black, attacking this bishop and this king? Queen a5 check. Queen a5 wasn't check last move when his pawn was here. And it wouldn't have mattered because his queen was defending his bishop, but now it's not. So he lost a bishop Only after 10 moves of the game, because he forgot, loose pieces drop off. That bishop's not defended. His king was exposed. My queen attacks them both, so I win a bishop. So in all of those examples, we saw a queen attacking a king and a bishop or a knight. And in two of those cases, we just win the piece. In the second one, the middle case, white actually had a way to defend himself, but he doesn't have that here. Sometimes you can defend, and sometimes you can't. It depends, but you have to see that coming because you have to realize when your bishop and knight are on the 4th and 5th rank, potentially you could lose them. You have to be careful. If they're not protected, you better watch out. Well, that was a tough lesson for some of my opponents. This is Grandmaster Ben Finegold, once again for Kid Chess. I hope you enjoyed that lesson. Bye, kids.